Welcome to Unsubscribe. I'm your host, Avani Jain. In this podcast, I'm going to show you how to intentionally opt out of anything that's robbing you of your energy, freedom, joy, and peace of mind. It's time to let it all go, finally, so that you can clear your mental inboxes and make space to subscribe to a life that truly lights your soul. If you're ready, hop in. We are embarking on the transformation of a lifetime.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Unsubscribe. Today, we are getting back to our roots. I have been thinking a lot about this podcast, the name of the podcast, Unsubscribe, and we haven't gotten to chat a little bit recently about the concept of unsubscribe itself and how that's been showing up in life lately. And I just thought it'd be a nice time to recenter ourselves and talk about it, why I even started this podcast in the first place, and my perspective on it these days. So unsubscribe to me has shown up in so many different ways, so many different flavors over the last 11 months in starting this podcast. And when I first started, it was unsubscribing to what society says about the way we should be, about the way we should live our lives. And this podcast is for those of us who are the ones that hold it all together. For everyone else, all the time, we are the figure-outers of the world. We are the people who do the most. And we just want a place where we can exhale and put things down for a little bit and take a look at all the things that are filling up our time, filling up our minds, and choose whether or not we want to allow them to continue to do so. Choose whether we want to continue to opt in to those beliefs, or if we want to take a look at that mental inbox and unsubscribe to what programs are not serving us anymore. And that's where we started. And to this day, I still believe at its core that's what this podcast is, but I've gotten to explore the idea of unsubscribe in so many other ways and flavors that it's been fun to see how we've progressed. And I'm finding that things that I unsubscribe to today are different and might even be things that I've subscribed to before that I will unsubscribe and resubscribe to again. So this idea that unsubscribing to something isn't permanent. It's something that I can choose to opt out of right now and then opt back in later. And that's okay. So one thing for me that's like that right now is my morning routine and having a long immersive morning routine with my favorite things like journaling and tapping. I haven't done tapping in a long time. And meditation. So this era of my life, I've been unsubscribing to long morning routines. And I think I've talked about that in one of my earlier episodes. And I'm sure there is a time where I will resubscribe to my long, beautiful morning routine of silence. But it's just not right now. And so I wanted to bring light to the fact that when we opt out of something, it doesn't mean we're opting out of it forever. It's just we're opting out of it for this current version of ourselves. And so I'm looking at the concept of unsubscribe very differently these days because I'm realizing it's depending on me, the version of me that I am, the woman that I am today, and my energy, my capacity, my health, my mental well-being, or if I've even gotten sleep that night. The way that I subscribe to or unsubscribe to things changes based on who I am available to be that day. And having it as something that ebbs and flows has allowed me to really embrace the dynamic versions of myself and accept all those different versions of myself, which is really cool. So I'm unsubscribing to the fact that unsubscribe needs to be permanent. You know, it can be something that shifts and changes as we shift and change. And I've also been unsubscribing to a bunch of other things. So I want to dive into those as well. One of the things that I've been saying no to a lot lately is showing up on Instagram stories. It used to be a place that I showed up and talked to all of you all the time on. I look back at Instagram stories from years ago and I have my front facing camera and I'm talking to my phone and I'm talking a lot. I did a lot of video Instagram stories. I did a lot of sharing of all the different things I was doing, promoting my podcast at that time or promoting a course that I was working on or just sharing the day in the life of running an agency. And I remember showing up so much. Like I had probably a dozen stories a day at one point and it was so much fun. And then somewhere in the last few years, it started to become a lot less fun. And that's something I've been slowly unsubscribing to lately and realizing that I don't find a lot of joy in it. I'm also looking at it differently. Instagram stories and anything that goes on the internet and then goes away after 24 hours isn't necessarily a good use of my time and energy because it's not going to last for a while. And that's why I love investing time into the podcast, because I get to sit here and create a piece of content, talk to you in this way, and it's going to last as long as I continue to keep the RSS feed up, which is really cool. And I'm realizing that I don't need to invest time in a medium or a format just because I have been doing it. I don't need to continue doing it just because I have been, and I get to look at it more strategically if I want to. And so that's why you see me less and less on stories these days, is because I'm realizing that content, it's fun for me from time to time, and then sometimes I don't have the energy or space for it, but it doesn't even last for that long. It disappears after 24 hours. So if I'm going to invest energy in sharing a concept with you on stories, I might as well make a reel out of it and put it on the grid or put it in a podcast episode, which this is one of my favorite formats. So that's what I continue to do. And so that's something big that I've just been thinking about differently and opting out of, or opting into in a different way, really. I do like to share sometimes when I'm traveling, or if I've done a birthday celebration or anything fun that feels exciting or joyful for me to share. But other than that, I'm not coming on here on stories. I don't even think I talked about my podcast episodes in my last few stories for the last few weeks. I just kind of forgot to share about them, and it was fine. People still listen to the podcast, and people still enjoyed the episodes. So refocusing on how I think about showing up on Instagram stories is something that's been really, really helpful and a big, good unsubscribe. In fact, I think that I kind of shared this on Instagram the other day, actually. I think that I might start sharing on TikTok more because that feels fun. So we'll see. If you really want to have a little bit of entertainment, you should check my TikTok out at Avani Miriala. I think it's at Avani Miriala. I might have changed it to Avani and Jane, but you'll see a bunch of dance videos from the COVID days. So if you want some entertainment, definitely check that out on TikTok, because that's all there is for now. Oh, and some painting videos, because I did a whole painting series a few years ago. But that's a big unsubscribe for me. The next one is my ongoing unsubscribe, which is being a people pleaser. Now, this has cropped up a lot for me lately, probably because I just haven't had the chance to flex the muscle as much and practice my people pleasing, or I guess practice not people pleasing and practice my boundaries. I just haven't been doing that as often, and I think I've gotten out of practice. So this past week, 2 weeks ago, we went to a wedding in California, and it was in Napa. And it was the trip that I went on right before I caught a cold. Actually, I caught a cold at the tail end of it. And I actually started feeling pretty badly that Sunday where the wedding reception was going on. And we went to the wedding reception for a little bit, and I felt horrible. I felt like I had a headache. I was dehydrated. My throat was starting to hurt, and I just really wanted to be in bed and lie down. And I remember debating whether I should stay at the reception or I should go to bed, and telling Tushar about it. And I felt so bad because I knew this was on my mom's side of the family, and it was really important for us to be there. And she was really excited that we were all there. And me not showing up to the reception and having empty seats at our table was something that I just wasn't sure if I could do, because I felt so bad about not showing up, not following through in this case, and making my mom maybe feel sad that I couldn't come because she was so excited for all of us to be here together with this family wedding. And I just remember debating this, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I just felt so terrible. And I can't believe that I was debating this in my head so long. But that's when Tushar told me, he was like, are you going to choose to be a people pleaser right now, or are you going to do what is right for you? This is one of those moments. So he asked me that question, and I was like, whoa, I think I have to listen to what's right for me. And what I really want is to take a nap and not wake up for several hours. And that's what I did. It wasn't easy. And of course, when I told my parents, hey, I'm not coming back to the reception, I don't feel good, I just really, really need to lie down, I feel really wiped out. And they understood. They got it. And I had just worked myself up in my head about feeling bad about this and about how it was going to be the worst thing in the world for our table to be empty or half empty. And it was okay. Everything was fine. Everyone understood. We actually went to the wedding ceremony that morning, so the most important part was over. And I was just taught once again that it's okay to put myself first, and that it's in fact required to put myself first. And I need to continue to flex that muscle for myself so that I can pour back into my cup and not be depleted. Of course, I was sick too, so that's extra depletion. And I was still debating if I should show up just so that I could make everyone else happy. And for me, it's this constant learning and relearning that if I am not able to rest myself, if I'm not able to refill my own cup, I will not be able to pour out of it. And this is the lesson that seems to keep popping up in my life. I think it's my samskara. The samskara is like the lesson that you have to keep learning again and again and again and again in life. And like, this is my samskara, is people pleasing and trying to navigate the people in the world around me and make everyone else okay before I attend to myself. And that's something I'm working on reversing, because it's just like when the oxygen masks fall down in the airplane, they tell you to put yours on first before you help the people around you. And it's just such a good reminder that I need to do that in my life, in my days. So that was my Napa experience. And I'm unsubscribing to feeling bad about things like that. And I think I'm starting to do a really good job of it, actually. So the other day, I remember my friend, one of my friends, she's like an acquaintance, and I see her around at parties and events, and maybe like once or twice a year I run into her and her husband. She's very nice, and I wanted to have lunch with her, or I think she wanted to have lunch with me. We were wanting to get together, and we were trying to find a time. So we booked something in November to have dinner. We were going to have her and her husband over for dinner, which was really exciting and fun, because it's fun to have dinner with our friends and host them. And we love doing that. And then she asked me a few weeks later, hey, can we move this because we had something come up? Can you do this day or this day? And I remember looking at our calendar for November and December thinking, we just have way too much happening. We just have way too much going on. I don't know how we're going to do this. Even though we might have a free evening here or there, I don't think we have the capacity for it. We need to have the space to recharge and have a moment or a night where we're not hosting or we're not going to an event, a night where we just be. And we were running out of those nights in November, especially with the holidays coming up, and we're already thinking about Thanksgiving and some travel coming up. And I was thinking, I need to say no to her. And Tushar didn't really say whether I should say no or not. I was just in my soul, I knew that we just didn't have the capacity for it. And if we tried to just push through, it would have been exhausting and we wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. Even though we do want to connect with these people, we do want to get together with them. So I ended up texting her back and saying, actually, we have overcommitted ourselves in the month of November, or I think I said we've overcommitted ourselves for the rest of the year. I'd love to revisit this in January when there's a little bit more breathing room. And it was hard for me to write that. It was hard for me to send it. And then I sent it. She got back to me saying, no worries. I totally understand. We've overcommitted ourselves too. And it was just so good to remember that often when we're wanting to cancel something, it actually works out better for everybody. And so we're going to be revisiting in January, getting together with this friend and her husband. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't always have to happen now, even if it's something we're looking forward to. And I think this is a theme for everyone right now, this idea of the end of the year is approaching. There is so many events. We don't want to miss out on anything. There's holiday parties. There's cookie decorating parties. There's pumpkin carving. I think Halloween's behind us, but Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving. How many Friendsgivings have you been invited to this year? Like, it's a lot happening, and we feel like, once again, we have to show up to everything and be everywhere all the time. But do we? And so I invite you, just like I'm encouraging myself to do this, I invite you to be honest with yourself and know if you're overcommitted or not, and know that it's okay to actually say no, or even if you've planned something, to cancel it and say, actually, we're not going to do this anymore. And I've been practicing that a lot because there's so many events that we could host. We were supposed to do a Friendsgiving, and then our other friends decided to throw one. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do a Friendsgiving. If we're going to one, it's going to be another week later that we're going to do a similar thing, even though it's going to be a different group of people. I don't have the capacity for it. So we're not hosting Friendsgiving. And it's something that is hard because, of course, sometimes we don't always agree. Like, maybe I want to do something that Tushar doesn't want to do, or vice versa. And so sometimes when I'm saying no, I might even be disappointing him or disappointing someone else like him that's close to me. And that feels really hard to do. But in the end, only I know what I have capacity for. So I'm really, really practicing unsubscribing to feeling bad for saying no, feeling bad to canceling, feeling bad to not showing up. And I will continue to practice that. It's definitely a practice for me. There's a reason they call these things practices, because you're not ever going to get it perfect. All you can do is try your best and learn each time. That's why it's called practice. And I think even yoga is called a practice, because you're not ever going to have the perfect posture or position. And every time you do it, you just get a little bit better. You get a little bit better. That muscle gets a little bit stronger. So I'm cultivating strength in my saying no and canceling muscles right now. It feels really, really good. So we talked a little bit of some things I'm unsubscribing to lately, and I want to talk about what I am subscribing to right now. One of the biggest things I feel like I have resubscribed to is my excitement and energy for fashion as a hobby. And it's just for myself, but I've just been getting so into fall and winter fashion these days, and it's been so much fun. I've been enjoying it immensely, and I haven't shopped for new clothes in a while, and it just feels really good to have a budget set aside for that. And I'm not just going about shopping for new clothes how I always do. Like, normally what I would do is I have a few fashion influencers I really like. I go from their profiles to like to know it, and then add those things to the cart, which there are a few pieces here and there that I'm doing that for, but I'm kind of working in a different order this time. I'm spending a lot of time on Pinterest and TikTok and really cultivating that excitement for the fall fashion, what's in style right now, the bubble skirts, the tall boots, the pop of red or the burgundy color, that's just all the rage right now, chocolate browns. I'm just really getting that inspiration, gathering it for myself. And I'm enjoying the process of that so much, especially on TikTok. Like the amount of influencers on TikTok that have trends on point is amazing. It's just been so much fun. And then Pinterest as well. And I'm using that as inspiration to then go hunt for the pieces that I want to find. And I did something crazy yesterday. I think it's crazy. It's funny. It was really fun. I got so fed up with searching for things online that I actually went to the mall. I walked into Nordstrom and I just started picking things off the rack. I had maybe 15 minutes because I had to be back home for something. And I just started picking things off the rack and had a bunch of clothes in my arm. And this stylist came by and she's like, "Can I help you?" And she started picking a few things and I had this huge pile. And then she's like, "Do you want to try these on?" I was like, "Actually, I don't have time to try them on. I'm going to try them on at home and then return the pieces I don't like." So I spent like a couple $1,000s just getting a bunch of pieces that I could try on at home. And then at home, at the end of the day, when the house was quiet, I got to try on all these fun pieces. And it was just such a joy to almost like artistically put things together. And the design mind inside of me came alive. The artist inside of me came alive. And I felt the creativity spark of new outfit combos and ideas for all the events coming up that we have at the rest of the year. And it was just so much fun. And it made me realize I'm resubscribing to putting effort into my clothing, into what I wear, into how I look, because it is so much fun for me. And it's a huge creative outlet for me right now. And it brings me so much joy. So that's something I'm resubscribing to. And this cardigan, bright red cardigan, is one of the things that I decided to keep from my big Nordstrom haul, which I'm just so grateful that I got to do. It was so much fun. I'm like, I think I should do this more and more, because it's a great way to discover new pieces that's a little different from shopping online. I love shopping online, don't get me wrong. It's so much fun to do that as well, but there's something to be said about the instant gratification of picking something up, trying it on, realizing it fits so well and it was made for you, and then taking it home. It's just really great. And then you got to leave the house too, which is another big thing. It's actually another big thing I'm subscribing to lately is leaving the house and getting outside. It's something that I feel like I used to do so much more. And then I had this quiet, cozy summer where it was too hot in Austin anyway, but I stayed inside a lot over the summer. And now I'm going out and about a little bit more. I'm going and taking myself out on matcha dates. If I haven't left the house in a day or two, I'm making myself leave the house now, which has been really important for my mental health. Or going for a walk. I used to do that a lot years ago, and just coming back to that and going outside, listening to a podcast and seeing the blue sky and the green trees. It just makes me feel like the world's a great place. And so doing that more often has been something that's felt really good. So I'm subscribing to leaving the house, even if it's just leaving the house to go complete a task like running an errand, pick something up, and come back home. It's not indulgent. It still feels really good to have left the house. And I think today, when we have work that allows us to work remotely or be at home, maybe run our businesses from home, it's so easy to stay in your home all the time, especially if you work out at home, you eat meals at home, you do everything at home, you get delivery, groceries delivered. It's so easy to just be at home all the time. And being able to leave the house and see that there's a big, bold, beautiful world out there makes me feel so much better every single time I do it. And one of the things I'm going to be incorporating in soon and resubscribing to is going to workout classes outside of the house. I did stop doing those for a while because I have an amazing trainer that comes to my house. But now, looking at it again from a different perspective, and I'll continue to do those training sessions, but I want to go back to Pilates. I miss it so much. It's something that felt so good for my body and for my mind, and just got to be back there in the Pilates studio. So it's another thing I'm subscribing to again lately. So there are a few things that I've been unsubscribing to and resubscribing to lately. I hope that has given you inspiration for yourself and things that you might want to start doing or stop doing or revisit. to feel a little bit better as you approach the end of the year, especially since it's such a crazy, wild time for all of us, and that it brings you some peace and grounding, and that you get to really go into the new year feeling fresh and feeling like you have the best foundation. Like I talked about previously, it's your winter arc. So I hope that you get to find some ideas to put into your winter arc and come out the best you in 2025. Thank you all for listening in to today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one.